Okay, Marty Ingram, prepare to blush. Working in Hollywood, we get to know that there's basically 7 basic plot lines, and every story that you hear is some derivative of one of those 7 plot lines. You know, the whodunit, the love triangle, all those kind of things. And there's basically 11 archetypes, 11 fundamental personality character types, and everyone is somehow a derivative or mixture of those. Well, we're sitting here with one of those stories, with one of those archetypes, and I know that everybody is a kind of combination of nature and nurture, and a lot is attributive of who we are is attributed to our parents. But some people, like this archetype here, it's just nature and in his DNA. We're sitting with a hero archetype. This is a guy who, when he was born and was helping people out, first jobs he has, he goes, I'll be a lifeguard. Then he goes and he's flying helicopters to help people. Then he's becoming working with the fire departments. And his whole life has been spent saving people. And I'm sure that self-preservation has a role in there, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to keep saving people. But this is a guy that his first instinct is, oh my God, something's happened. Who needs help? I'm running in to the danger zone to help them. This is the hero archetype, and I am very honored to be sitting with a man of your caliber and authenticity. And it's great to meet you, Marty.
Well, it's great to meet you too, and thank you for doing this. We always cringe at the term hero. A lot of us just think we're doing our job, and that's how we deflect it. And we're happy to be called into this career field. It's a honor to be part of it. And there were many people with us. In any rescue I did, it was not one person, it was an entire team. So, and I've had the fortune to meet a lot of really outstanding people. It was great.
And a lot of those outstanding people, a lot of them in this book?
Yeah.
So the book is called Flood, Fire, and a Superstorm by Marty Ingram. So tell us about the book. And first of all, you got to love when an authentic archetype like this guy is writing his true story. That's the kind of stuff we love, especially out in Hollywood. We want to turn this into a movie. But tell us about the book.
Yeah, the book, I just felt compelled to write it. I had a difficult time writing it. Everybody... You train during an emergency or disaster, or even when an aircraft's coming apart, to do your activity. But when the whole event is over, you have a hard time decompressing, and I did. And
you suffered a little PTSD.
Yeah, a little bit of that. But I finally got over it, and I said, this is a compelling story. I need to write it, and I need to do it on multiple levels, so that I can help other people and also tell the great story about what all the individuals have done. So it was a long time coming. It was an intensive 3 years writing this, drafting it, redrafting it, getting rejections. I almost threw it in the garbage, and I'm glad I didn't, because the feedback that I'm getting from locally and on the Amazon websites, it's really good. I'm glad I told the story, because it's not my story. It's everybody's story. It's a universal story.
So 3 years to write it.
Yeah.
And then. And one of the things that I've really enjoyed listening to with you, tell everyone, because I just love it, I believe in it so much, tell everyone about part of the stories you tell and the magical part about it.
Well, again, it's written on multiple levels, but definitely on one level being spiritual. We witnessed some miracles that occurred that night. Initially, I didn't stand up enough to say, I said it were positive outcomes. They were truly miracles. And we had prayer huddles. They started off as information huddles. We had survivors that came to our location. We wind up operating a public shelter in the middle of a hurricane. And to avoid panic, we gave them a lot of information. We shared it. And at the end, I said to him, you might think this is unusual, but I think it's appropriate. And I said, please join me in saying a prayer. And we did the Our Father. And of course, these people, when they see the fire chief without any equipment and he's saying a prayer, it probably didn't inspire confidence, but all of a sudden they calmed down, they relaxed, and after we did it 3 times, and after each time we saw what previously I called a positive outcome, but each one was really a miracle. And it really worked. And a lot of this book talks about the power of prayer. And it's not on the surface. It's not a Sunday homily or anything like that, but it just tells you, when you experience something like this and you see a big force like a storm, you just can't help becoming closer to whatever you call that person, whether it's God, Yahweh, or Allah. It's a moving experience, and it forces you to become more spiritual.
So you're out there, and you're going into dangerous stuff with that kind of power of God behind you, and recognizing that the power of prayer has worked, and that you've actually firsthand seen that's the mathematical odds of that taking place are so beyond it. But those, you call them prayer huddles. Huh?
Yeah, prayer huddles, and we gathered in a group, and it was much. I used to be a swim coach for my high school.
Helping others, probably saving them while you're doing it. It's in his DNA, I'm telling you. Hero archetype. But anyway, so okay.
So anyway, before the meet, I gathered the team together, and we'd say a prayer, and in hopes that the Almighty would help us win. So it was really not much different than that. We did that, and again, we witnessed miracles. And the big miracle was that after the trucks were under 5 feet of water, the wind had changed. We were now directly downstream from the smoke plume from the fire of 135 homes. Biggest residential fire in history ever of Queens, New York. One of the biggest in the history of New York City.
You're talking about the one after Sandy, where...
During Sandy? Yeah. And that was the fire we were fighting that night, and that's why I titled it. And so the wind direction changes. I knew we were on the back end of the storm, but what that meant was we were now immediately downwind of the smoke plume, and it was like a firestorm inside, and it looked like meteors flying at us. It was embers. If it was a movie, it would have been beautiful, but it was real life. And during that time, we had to move, and the only way to move is if the trucks worked, and the trucks were underwater. And I sent my chauffeurs over to start the trucks, and fully expecting that it wasn't going to work. I just did that to rule it out. And all of a sudden, the trucks roared to life. And that's when we all, looking, this is a miracle.
I was going, yes.
and now we had options. So, it was pretty cool. And I think that, it doesn't happen often. You make prayers and you see immediate response. I think it helps if that superior being knows your voice. But it truly worked for us that night, and it's not forgotten. And it's why 10 years later I'm telling that story, and I'm not backing down from it. Yeah. So it's pretty cool.
And he's not backing down from it. But yeah, you mentioned that was the biggest fire. I mean, I remember seeing it on the news, saying, "Mother of God, look at that!" But I didn't realize that it's really one of the biggest ever around here.
Biggest residential, and the fact that nobody died. The truck started. There are just so many. The next morning, the only thing that was left standing in the burn zone was a statue of the Blessed Mother. I'll show it to you on the way out. It used to sit at the altar of our church, and now it sits in front of it. And there was a Christian church, traditionally black Christian church from Jamaica, Queens, that did a painting of the miracle trucks of Breezy Point.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So a lot of people recognize what happened, and it's a good story. I have it in the book, and it's people are just uplifting. A lot of people are saying this book is coming out at the right time. People are very upset with everything in the world, and here's a story of ordinary people doing extraordinary things that brings everybody together. And it started during the storm, and it's a good news story. So I'm happy to bring it out now.
It is one of those stories that is uplifting and brings people together. And I think what you're saying, it is the right time. We're all looking, saying, how are we connected now? And we have all the stuff going on with social media that seems like it's connecting us or disconnecting us and irritating us. But we've got this other consciousness of talking to everybody at the same time. But it's this kind of stuff that the stuff, the unseen, right. What faith is made of, that people are really gravitating to now. Tell us another story. The 6 degrees of separation, where everybody's connected to everybody, or even their industries somehow. Tell us the story about the helicopter up and with the perfect storm.
Well, it's kind of funny. One of my fortunate work, I was an Air Force rescue helicopter pilot, and when I came off active duty, I joined the Air National Guard, which was based out in West Hampton. at it was the 106th Air Rescue Group, and I flew Jolly Greens and Pavehawks there. And one of our guys was on a mission during what was originally called the Halloween No Name Storm. Later on, it was called the Perfect Storm.
Yeah, they call it the working title, so no one really knows what they're doing at first. But
yeah, and unfortunately, they attempted a rescue of a solo pilot around the world, and they went out about 250 miles in the ocean, and they weren't able to make the rescue. They were able to get a ship to come in, make the rescue. They're on the way back in, and the weather is really intensive. They attempt to do a air refueling off C-130, which we are trained on how to air refuel and extend our range out over the ocean, in a place where there's no gas stations. And what happened was they wound up trying to refuel in the severe turbulent area, and they couldn't hit the basket. And my good friend Dave Ravallo was in command. He had a crew of 6 people, and they had to do a controlled ditching at night in 80-foot waves, 80-knot winds, and ditch the aircraft because they were going to run out of gas. They were running out when he ditched. He lost one engine. So they were in the drink, and they're in a survival mode right now, and they crashed at 8:30 at night. 9:30, I got the call, and I was picked to be the aircraft commander of our rescue helicopter to rescue one of our own. The story's in the book. And we launched, we were scheduled to launch at 3 a.m., and right as we're lifting off, we got word that the Coast Guard vessel Tamaroa was on scene, and the base commander canceled. He aborted my mission. Which we were going to be there at first light, but we were going to be still within the storm. And the Tamaroa wound up picking up the entire crew except for one person, a pararescue man named Rick Smith. And we wound up searching for him for like a week and a half later. And if he was someplace out over the ocean, we would have gotten him. And
the telltales that you mentioned about how when you're out there, I mean, what are you looking for? It's like, how are you going to find somebody? And everything looks the same. But the telltales that you said that you looked for.
Well, you know, from the air, when you're looking down for a survivor, you're only seeing mostly the top of their head, which is about 30 centimeters. So, you know, we've been all trained for signaling. You know, we may have a smoke flare. We would look for a mirror reflection. We would look for something. In a turbulent whitewater ocean, it's very difficult to pick out anything. You just look to see if something would stand out. Hopefully, we also have electronics. They have a portable radio. They could transmit on the UHF, and we could home in on that signal, and that would be the best way for us to find them. Because in a turbulent whitewater area, it's very difficult to see anything, you know.
But you can see where the tides bring people, or would bring things by, you mentioned like styrofoam cups and little things like that, and you could spot that and say, well, that's where, you know, we'd probably be along with that stuff.
Yeah, well, we work with the Coast Guard in this mission, and they were able to plot out the drift lines. And they said if somebody went down here with the different currents and the different winds, they would be in this direction. So we took that as the primary area, and we extended during that week and a half. We were at 200, 300 miles out. And if he was there, we would have got him. And the water was calm then. During the storm, it was rough. But, you know, it just wasn't meant to be. And it's always the toughest when you're out trying to rescue your own people.
Yeah.
It was tough.
Listen, I'm enjoying this with you a lot. We're going to go over to the fire station and take a little visit there with an archetype, a hero archetype.
That was a big deal, and I explained that in the book, because we had to figure out the water on the ball field was like 20 feet. There's a stop sign over there that we were using as a dipstick to measure the depth of the water, and we had to figure out what was the depth that we could drive the trucks in. The limiting factor was the exhaust stack, and then also above the engine, you know, if it flooded the carburetor, we couldn't go. But the exhaust was backed up. So on the new truck, we put a snorkel exhaust on it, so that we could drive through.
So that's new. That wasn't there
at
that time.
This truck was with us, and all the bells and whistles. The manufacturer put all the diodes for the computers down low.
Yeah.
And it was like an incredible music symphony that was disjointed.
Yeah.
And We drove this truck the next morning, and the other truck that we retired, I was on during the night. But these are the miracle trucks of Breezy Point.